Pope Francis stirs up controversy with his comments on civil unions for same-sex couples and makes an historic appointment to the College of Cardinals. The Papal Posse, Robert Royal and Father GERALD MURRAY, join me with analysis. And with just days until the next presidential election, what principles and issues must be in the forefront of Catholics going to the polls? Cardinal Raymond Burke shares his thoughts. Finally, retired Bishop of Hong Kong, Cardinal Joseph Zen, updates us on the persecuted church in his country after the Vatican renews its agreement with Communist China. The World Over begins right now.
Now, Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. A very important show for you tonight. Robert Royal, Father GERALD MURRAY, Cardinal Raymond Burke, and Cardinal Joseph Zen are all straight ahead. If you'd like to comment on tonight's show, send me a tweet. I'm at Raymond Arroyo. I also have a big announcement about a book signing that you'll be interested in this Christmas. Lots to cover. Joining me now is the Papal Posse, editor-in-chief of thecatholicthing.org and visiting fellow at Thomas More College in New Hampshire, Robert Royal, here with me on set, properly distanced. And joining us also from New York is canon lawyer, priest of the Archdiocese of New York, Father GERALD MURRAY, and he's really socially distanced. Nice to have the posse all together again. I want to begin with this Francesco documentary about Pope Francis. It made global headlines because in the film, Francis calls for the passage of civil union laws for same-sex couples. Here's what he actually says in the documentary, and we'll roll it for you. Homosexual people have the right to be in a family. They are children of God and have a right to a family. Nobody should be thrown out or be made miserable over it. What we have to have is a civil union law. That way, they are legally covered. Now, what the Pope says about homosexual people having a right to be in a family is not against church teaching, nor is it new. The Pope has often said that homosexual children should not be ostracized from their biological families. However, the media and activists have been saying the they have a right to a family line there is a shift in church teaching. Is it, Father Jerry?
No, because that was a manipulation of the Pope's words. He was not endorsing the formation of a family by adoption or surrogate motherhood in that regard. So that is not a change in church teaching. What is the change in church teaching is what he said about homosexual unions being recognized by civil law. Back in 2003, Pope John Paul II said the following: Catholics are obliged to oppose legal recognition of homosexual unions. Catholics are obliged, and the reason is it's an endorsement of deviant behavior, and it is giving societal recognition to something which is a fake marriage. It has nothing to do with marriage. And it gives the approval to behavior which is mortally sinful. So that is something which contradicts church teaching and is causing tremendous havoc. I've been reading about, Catholic homosexuals who live chaste lives, who resist temptations to commit this sin. They feel let down. They feel like they've been cast aside by the Pope. And on the other hand, the activists who want to legitimize homosexuality think this is great. This is a real crisis in the church, Raymond.
Well, Father referenced that 2003 document, and in it says, respect for homosexual persons cannot lead to any way to approval of homosexual behavior or a legal recognition of homosexual unions. But Bob, some say the Pope's comments here that civil unions should be recognized legally is a change in the teaching, and that's a good thing. He's accompanying those other people in the church.
Well, I ask myself why this statement was even made at all. It was initially made in 2019. Even in the original statement, which was then edited out of the video in Mexico, I don't know why he made the statement back then. Now, for that to have been included, and Father is quite right that the Russian producer of this documentary manipulated the language to make it look much more radical than in fact it is. But still, why allow this to come out now? Now, maybe there's an intention behind this. I tend to resist these days an overly careful reading of the Pope as actually intending something, because there just seems to be a lot of chaos that swirls around him. But if it was intended that that come out at this point, why exactly? We know what actually happens when civil unions are approved. It happened in Argentina when he was in favor of that as sort of a halfway house to avoid gay marriage.
Right.
Ultimately, the goal is gay marriage. And not only that, it's acceptance of transgenders and the affirmation of gay lifestyles. So this is not in any way, even from a prudential point of view, something that's effective. It not only affirms something that's sinful, but it doesn't even succeed politically.
Father Jerry, in an interview with CNN, Father James Martin, who has really been out front framing the Pope's comments, had this to say. Watch.
I think he's creating a new space for LGBT people. There is a 2003 document from the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith against same-sex unions, and the Pope is obviously saying he sees things a little differently. It's momentous because he's saying it as Pope. He said it before as Archbishop of Buenos Aires. He's saying it on the record, and he's being very clear. It's not simply he's tolerating it, he's supporting it.
Father Jerry, should we accept that at face value? What's he saying there?
Well, I think Father Martin, unfortunately, is accurate in his observation. The Pope has stated quite clearly that he thinks homosexual men or homosexual women have a right to some kind of legal recognition of their relationship in a way that's equivalent in some way to marriage without calling it marriage. And what the Pope has done here is something that no Pope has ever done, which is accept the gay lifestyle. The Pope seems to be at ease with homosexuals living together and committing sin. Because let's face it, the basis of homosexuals' civil unions is that they're going to be sexually active with each other, and they make promises to that effect. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, to say the least, that the Pope did this. I think it's really scandalous, and it's not a happy day when a Catholic priest has to say that the Pope has done something that he thinks is scandalous. But really, Holy Father is saying something that goes directly against Catholic moral teaching. Not only are we not supposed to commit mortal sin, we're not supposed to encourage other people to do it or speak in a way that would give them the impression that we tolerate it or think it's good. So this is not a good moment for the Catholic Church right now.
Several prelates, including Cardinal Raymond Burke, whom will join us later, and Archbishop Athanasius Schneider, have called on the Pope to retract his statements here. Do you think he will, Robert Royal?
No, because I think you're quite right with what you said before, that this is sort of the way he likes to accompany people. That, in that statement that they have a right to exist in a family. I don't even believe that was a common expression among gay activists, and somehow now this thing has jumped out as a new right that exists in civil society. And he also talks about the right not to be made miserable in a family because you're a homosexual. The actual word they use in the Italian translation is infelice, unhappy. Well, this is a very sentimental approach to the moral life. There are lots of things that make us unhappy that we have to do as Christians, but we must follow Christ and follow the teachings of his church. So instead of putting the teaching first and then a kind of a pastoral accompanying people after that, what he's done is kind of raise the visibility of just this emotional niceness toward a group of people and neglected what is really his role as the Pope, which is to teach the brethren and sisters, to reaffirm us in what the faith teaches, and not only faith but also the morals, against a society that is all too ready to go to town the minute the Pope begins to appear squishy on these issues.
Father Jerry, there were protests this weekend in St. Peter's Square with laity asking the Pope to clarify these statements on same-sex unions. So far, the Vatican has seemingly embraced the film. They even gave the filmmaker an award. They refused to issue any comment. Is a statement of clarification needed, in your opinion?
Absolutely. In fact, we need a statement where the Pope is going to recant and take this back because, quite frankly, the Pope has overstepped his bounds. He has no right to endorse in any way immoral behavior. Sodomy is a sin. It's a mortal sin. Relationships that lead to sodomy are the near occasion of sin and must be resisted and not entered into. And the point of the laity is absolutely correct. We live in a society in which the pressure put on the Catholic Church to change her teaching about sexual morality is constant. And it seems very clear the Pope has given in on something that he has no right to give in on. When John Paul II and Benedict XVI confronted the homosexual culture and the legal pressures put on the church, they did so in the name of the gospel. It's interesting to note that Protestant leaders, including Franklin Graham, are scandalized by what the Pope has done. They've come out against it. So I know that Cardinal Burke and Bishop Schneider have spoken eloquently on the matter. I hope the Pope will listen to them, because this is not just something you can say, well, this happened and now we've got to move on. No, this is something that cannot change. Immorality cannot be approved, tolerated in this way, and given legal recognition at the behest of the Catholic Church. Imagine what happens when a homosexual pressure group now approaches bishops in Africa or Latin America and says, we want you to be in favor of civil unions and go to the government on our behalf. And by the way, that's what the Pope is telling you to do. This is going to cause a big upheaval.
Yeah, well, it already has. I mean, we have local bishops all over the United States and globally who are saying, well, we heard what the Holy Father said. I don't agree with this. I can't support this as a protector of the gospel. So in my diocese, we are going on as we were. Doesn't this create a disunity around something as central as marriage, morality? I mean, where does it leave the church?
Yeah, I have to say again, I mean, why make this statement when most of the developed world is way, way already beyond the idea of civil unions? We're into gay marriage, transgender rights, and all these other things. You know, it's very ironic that some of the gay activists are saying he didn't go far enough, that his silence is actually a problem for them, because he leaves this, as he often has in the past, as we've spoken about on the show here. He does this, and he wants to see what kind of reaction occurs as a result. I want to say again, though, I wouldn't be surprised if we find that this came out in some kind of chaotic way that the Vatican wasn't necessarily involved in. There is not, it seems to me, a very disciplined approach to these issues. Yeah. The way that the press office has been, it seemed to be unaware of actually what had happened when this thing first came out. So it creates all kinds of confusion. And right now, as a woman wrote to me immediately when she saw this happen, she said, the church doesn't need more ambiguity and confusion right now. We are fighting enough with the secular world. This chaos amongst ourselves can only benefit people who don't have the best interests of the church.
And as you mentioned earlier, I have read reports where this interview with the Mexican reporter, the Vatican edited this piece out of the interview, but for whatever reason, they gave this filmmaker carte blanche access to the archive with the unedited bits. And it has created a controversy where you didn't need one. But we'll return to this later and see where it ends. This past weekend, Pope Francis announced a consistory on November 28th. That is the creation of 13 new cardinals. Among those to be raised to the cardinalatial see, or to the College of Cardinals, is Archbishop Wilton Gregory, who becomes the first black cardinal in the United States. What do you make of Archbishop Gregory's appointment to cardinal so soon after taking the Archdiocese of Washington? Father Jerry, and what are we to read into this?
No, I think this is good and normal, and in fact a recognition of black Catholics in the United States and their importance to the life of the Church. Washington's our capital, and Archbishop, now Cardinal designate Gregory, is one of the leading figures in the Catholic Church in the United States. So, I've studied black Catholic history. It is a marvelous development over time, people who suffered under prejudice and segregation and persevered in their faith. And I think it's very good. We always try to encourage young black men to consider the priesthood. I hope that will be one of the results of this. What I will say is that some of the other nominations were a little surprising. People who you would never expect to be named cardinal were named, and others who you would be expecting to be named, such as the Archbishop of Los Angeles or the Archbishop of Paris, were not named. So things are not as they were under the previous popes, where archbishops of major sees almost automatically become cardinals. And I think, that's a little bit problematic, because the system is kind of not clear where it's leading.
Of the 13 new cardinals, 9 are under the age of 80, which means they would be eligible to elect Francis's successor. With these new appointments, Pope Francis has appointed 76 of the 128 cardinals who will be voting in that next conclave. Robert Royal, what does this tell you about the future direction of the Church? With these 8 appointments, he has exceeded the 120 limit for the cardinals. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Look, it's a little bit hard to read this. I agree with Father. It's surprising that, for example, Archbishop Gomez in LA, that was a huge archdiocese, a Hispanic leader in the United States, president of the Bishops' Conference, very much in line with the Pope on immigration. He's been a very strong advocate of immigration. But he's also an Opus Dei member, and probably considered by some of the people who have the Pope's ear to be more traditional than maybe Francis would like. I think that this is quite regrettable. That we've had similar things like this. Archbishop Chaput was never named a cardinal, and clearly deserved it because of his leadership in the church here in the United States. In terms of the appointments that he's made around the world, he's really tried to go to, as he says, the peripheries. So 4 of the appointments are from Rwanda, Chile, Brunei, countries like this that aren't exactly central to figuring out where the church is going in the future. And we don't know these people. I don't think the other cardinals know these people very well. So it may be that there is some kind of ideological or ecclesiological component to this. But it's a mixed picture, and I think that we could say, though, overall, that these appointments from the peripheries are not going to be sympathetic, say, to the idea of civil unions, as you were saying earlier. So we'll see how this plays out. I don't think we can say ahead of time until we see the next conclave.
Yeah, I think the ideological framing of this may be off, because by going to the peripheries, Father Jerry, the Pope is also bringing in people and experiences and cultures that, frankly, I don't think the Vatican fully comprehends or understands.
Well, certainly the African cardinal from Rwanda, his family, almost all the members were killed in the terrible war that occurred there. The new cardinal coming from Brunei is living in a majority Muslim country, and his experience of living the faith there will be certainly something to learn from. It's interesting. The Pope also named honorary cardinals, meaning cardinals over the age of 80, to recognize them, and that continues a tradition of John Paul II. I think the point, though, that bears saying is that the College of Cardinals has not met. I think it's now going on 5 years. They have not gotten together as a group, and that's the Pope's call. He's the one that calls them together. So therefore, I don't think they know each other too well. And that doesn't bode well for discussions about, who would be known and appreciated as candidates for the next conclave. That's remediable in the immediate, different meetings that can take place. But I think it would be important that the Pope reconsider this policy of not having meetings of the college entirely in Rome. That should start again.
No, it's going to create a very difficult conclave, because these people are coming from the peripheries of the church and really don't have experience with working with these other cardinals or even connections to Rome. Will make it very difficult. And to pick up on what you were saying, Bob, the oversight of Archbishop Gomez, who could be a major Hispanic cardinal in America, which has the largest Hispanic minority that's the largest minority in the country. That seems a missed opportunity. I mean, we're making a great deal over Archbishop Gregory, primarily not because of his policies or his track record, but because of his race. I don't know why we're not also expending the same focus and energy on Archbishop Gomez, but I guess that can be cured in time. The election is less than a week away. I have to get into some of this tussle we're seeing. Amy Coney Barrett, now Justice Barrett, was sworn in as an Associate Supreme Court Justice on Monday night. I attended that incredible swearing-in event. Do you think that her appointment has an impact on the Catholic vote at all? Robert Royal, quickly.
Well, I would like to think so, because I think the Catholics have got to understand that their public witness depends on there being people who at least follow the faith enough that they don't act against it. And she, mom of 7 kids, woman. 2 black kids, utterly brilliant, a woman, that all these things coming together. I would hope that Catholics would be inspired by that fact.
Yeah.
Whether it will cause them to vote for the president in greater numbers, maybe slightly so, but at this point I have a feeling that opinions are pretty much settled. Maybe just around the edges this may have some effect. But listen, it's a great thing.
Father Jerry, I mean, you saw the flip in support for her nomination. At the beginning, you had all these people who were against moving the nomination forward. By the time she had gone through her hearings, a majority supported her nomination because she is so impressive, and a New Orleans Catholic girl, I might add. Your thoughts on this and the impact she might have and that whole process might have on this election?
Well, a couple of things. One is, what was the first issue that was brought up by her opponents? It was abortion.
Yeah.
No Democrat voted for her, sad to say. She is the ideal exponent of what we try to promote in a society in which men and women are treated equally. Is she has a brilliant career and she has a beautiful family, and she's combined them so well. I think the grace and brilliance that she showed at the hearings inspires people because, quite frankly, the Supreme Court has been the cause of much mischief and horrendous decisions. And having someone like her on the court, I think now we're going to have good decisions and orderly legal proceedings. And, you know, elections, well, that's up to the voters. But it's very upsetting to see no Democrat come out and say that this woman deserves to be part of the Supreme Court because of her qualities and beautiful family and all the rest. But that this abortion domination in the Democratic Party is a disservice to the American people. Abortion is not something that was ever voted on by the American people, and to keep it at the level of the Supreme Court, no. The Supreme Court should send it back to the states and let the people vote on it.
No, we shall see in time. Both presidential candidates have been targeting the Catholic vote. I want to play this for you. This is a pastor in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, Father Michael O'Connor. It's a recent homily where he talked about Joe Biden touting his Catholicism in this campaign year. Watch.
Joe Biden embraces teachings that are absolutely and fundamentally opposed to the priorities of our church to protect life, to protect the sanctity and the holiness of marriage. He is, in some respects, an embarrassment to Catholicism. He is pro-abortion for any reason or for no reason at all. There is an amendment that is written to protect your federal tax dollars, the money that you give to Caesar, that protects that money from paying directly for abortion. It's called the Hyde Amendment. Joe Biden actively wants to repeal that amendment.
I'll get into this further with Cardinal Burke in our next segment, but what do you both make of the way Biden has used his Catholicism and put it front and center throughout this campaign? Will Catholics simply ignore the record and say, well, he's a nice man and he prays the rosary every now and then? Is that enough?
Unfortunately, I think for a lot of people it is enough, but it's utterly preposterous. I mean, what he's done, not only what he says, but he's even said things like trans rights are the civil rights issue of our time. I mean, this is going way beyond abortion. He wraps himself in the Affordable Care Act as if Trump is reelected, somehow healthcare in the United States will vanish. It's an utter lie, by the way, that pre-existing conditions will not be allowed in the insurance and whatnot. But it's preposterous, and I think that we should have had more priests like this speaking out. We should have had more bishops speaking out about this. You don't have to endorse or tell people how to vote, right, but you can say the truth about what it is that the church teaches. It's important, especially at moments like this, when you have a Catholic candidate running for president of the United States who is so opposed to the church on so many different issues. Look, you can say till you're blue in the face that he's going to help the poor and whatnot. Yeah, that's further down the line. Trump actually helped a lot of the poor by having an economy that got people back to work. And our Holy Father has said giving people a job is actually more important than these relief efforts. But no, we have not had in our church leadership enough people stand up to just make the obvious point that this man says and does things that are going to be disastrous for the church. I mean, we will not see the end of the persecution of the Little Sisters of the Poor, and on and on and on. So, look, if we just told the truth as a church about where he is, I think a lot of people might have had some different thoughts and feelings about him prior to this.
Father Jerry, if Joe Biden does pull this out, what will it mean to have a Catholic in the White House who truly contradicts basic teachings of the Church?
This will be a source of continual conflict with the Catholic Church and will cause immense scandal to non-Catholics because here is a man, who is a Catholic and claims to, be a faithful Catholic, but is absolutely contradicting what a faithful Catholic has to do. So if he's elected, we're going to have a number of issues. When he attends public Mass, should he be given Holy Communion? The answer is no. He is contradicting the Church's teaching of something very serious and grave. As we discussed a few weeks ago, abortion is not just an issue. Abortion is the preeminent human rights challenge of our age, and it is so momentously wrong for a Catholic candidate for president treat it as just another issue that he's going to take a different position on. No, this is ridiculous. It's pathetic for him to say, nuns inspire me, and then say, well, the Little Sisters of the Poor have to give out abortifacients and contraception to their employees. That's not consistent. So, I wish everybody well, in the sense I want everybody to follow Christ and to do, the will of God. But when someone is manifestly contradicting that, we can't just sit there silently and smile. Mr. Biden has an obligation to follow what he says he believes in, and so far he's not done that in public. It's really terrible.
Well, I'll just make this statement because I've been thinking about this a lot, covering both of these campaigns, Biden and Trump, and I've been to both their events. If Biden does win the Catholic vote, it is, to my mind, another sign that the Church itself, in America at least, is shattered. And frankly, that Catholics are not bound by even basic teachings once considered important for us to hold as a people. And in many ways, it will be the exaltation and the coronation of dissent with a professed Catholic president who legislates in opposition to the stated doctrines of his own communion. But that's on the Church for not holding he and other Catholics accountable. And I think there will be a day of reckoning, as you mentioned a moment ago, Bob, for the bishops, for the priests who sat back and did nothing. Lockdowns are coming. And one of the big issues, I think, in this election, maybe people haven't focused on it yet, but to my eye, it is going to be the perpetual lockdown of churches and religious activity in the United States. You can go to the casino now, you can hit Costco, we can get all the booze you want, and drugs, apparently. Go to the marijuana dispensaries in some states. You may not go to Mass. You may not go to church or gather with more than 5 or 6 or 10 of your congregants. Have we focused sufficiently on that and the promise of each of these candidates vis-a-vis locking down, particularly religious practice, owing to COVID? Using COVID as an excuse, I think.
I mean, it's defining religion as inessential, in
right.
fact, right?
Right, it's a throwaway.
And the other things are essential. Going to the supermarket is essential and whatnot. And this is the manifestation of materialism in society, as if our bodily existence is more important than our spiritual existence. There's no recognition that the spirit, that our moral values, that the need to worship God is an important part of what it means to be a human being. We're a country that is founded on the idea that we've been endowed by our Creator with our rights. And that was the fundamental difference of the United States from all other modern democracies. Others rebelled against Christianity, against religion, and wanted to secularize. We're firmly rooted in the idea that God is the one that gives us this wonderful free system that we exist in, and we're now declaring him to be inessential.
Yeah. Father Jerry, I'm going to give you the last word. I am struck by the palpable fear that is being peddled this election season. Fear of COVID, fear of economic ruin. And it's all, it seems everybody's in their little cave hiding out. Your thoughts on that and how it might or might not affect the outcome of this election and the practice of Catholics going forward in Catholicism?
Well, let me, we referred to Archbishop Gregory and, honoring black Catholics. I'm absolutely disgusted when I hear people calling President Trump a racist. President Trump is not a racist. This is a tactic that's being used precisely to generate fear, to try and drive black voters away from him. What's going on here? This kind of sloganeering, which is not based in reality. Why is it, for instance, when there's riots going on in all over the United States in different places, certain people say nothing, and when President Trump says we got to have law and order, they call him a racist. Black people and Hispanics who live in poor neighborhoods which are being ravaged, and that's a fact, that's not a prejudice, that's a fact to say that, they want the police to stop this. I'm horrified by this, certain places like my own city here in New York where politicians stand by when there's all this mayhem going on. Law and order is not racist, and this is something that I think has caused a lot of fear in people. They have to recognize that.
Yeah. Well, we shall leave it there. Posse, thank you both. You can find commentary by Robert Royal and Father Gerald Murray at thecatholicthing.org. And Columbus and the Crisis of the West by Robert Royal is available at bookstores everywhere and at the EWTN Religious Catalog. Thank you both. We'll check in after the election. And I want to give you a little taste of what we're hearing on the trail. Both candidates are invoking God. I call it God talk. Watch.
The Bible tells us there's a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to heal. This is that time.
In America, we celebrate faith. We cherish religion. We lift our voices in prayer, and we raise our sights to the glory of God.
In this country, civil society, and especially our religious institutions, are an essential foundation of American freedom. Our nation is strong because of Catholics and, frankly, people of all faiths. Somebody said to me the other day, "You're the most famous person in the world by far." I said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." They said, "Yes, you are." I said, "No." They said, "Who's more famous?" I said, "Jesus Christ."
Cardinal Raymond Burke is up next, but first, I have been getting a lot of notes and letters, and people have been asking, what would EWTN's foundress, Mother Angelica, say about this election and voting? Well, there's no need for us to guess. This is what she has said. Watch.
Okay, so should you vote? Oh, yes, you should. Doesn't matter who we vote for. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to vote for candidates. I vote for life. For life. If we don't stand for the principles of God, you will be next. Because you're getting too old. You take up too much time in medicine. Yeah. The culture of death is hard, unbending.
Mother Angelica is always timely. The next presidential election is days away, and the polls seem to favor Democrat Joe Biden over President Donald Trump. Biden, the only Catholic in the race, has made a point to court Catholic voters, specifically with a campaign ad calling him, quote, a man guided by faith. But do his policies and public record bear that out? How are Catholic voters to view these two candidates when they choose a new commander-in-chief on Tuesday? Here to share his thoughts is the former head of the Vatican's highest court, one of the world's foremost canon lawyers, and the patron of the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, Cardinal Raymond Burke. Your Eminence, I want to begin with the voting principles a Catholic voter should consider when casting a ballot. There's been a lot of talk from partisan Catholics, frankly, suggesting that people shouldn't be one-issue voters, so that climate change and religious freedom and immigration and abortion are all sort of equal, and you throw them all in the bin and see which balances the other out. Is that the right way to approach this election?
No, there is a hierarchy of goods, and what we have to attend to are the most fundamental goods for the country, and then the other goods follow from them. And number one has to be life, has to be number two has to be the family, which is the where life is welcomed, and the third has to be religious freedom, in order that the home can be truly a little church, in order that people can live their faith with integrity. These are the fundamental issues. And the other things surely all have to be addressed. But if we don't get it straight, with regard to human life and regard to the family and religious freedom, there's no future for our country.
In a campaign speech in Georgia on Tuesday, Joe Biden invoked Pope Francis. He had this to say.
Pope Francis asked questions that anyone who seeks to lead this great nation should be able to answer. And my answer is this: I run to unite this nation and to heal this nation. God and history have called us to this moment and to this mission. With our voices and our votes, we must free ourselves from the forces of darkness.
Cardinal Burke, your reaction and thoughts on Biden advertising his Catholicism in this way, while, as you mentioned a moment ago, defying the church on abortion and marriage. Is he the agent to deliver us from darkness, evil?
I would say not. I can't imagine that he would present himself as a devout Catholic. He has a record which is unfortunately perfect in promoting the attack on the innocent, defenseless unborn. He has said openly that he's going to force the Little Sisters of the Poor to have insurance and so forth, which provides for operations or procedures which are contrary to the natural moral law to the Catholic faith. He's also not correct on the issues with regard to marriage and the family. So this is very strange to me that the great darkness in our nation comes from the wholesale slaughter of the unborn, also the attack on the family, all this gender theory and so forth, and now the attack on religious freedom, where people are no longer, the government will tell them what they can and cannot do, even if it involves the violation of the moral law.
Cardinal Burke, would you deny Joe Biden communion, or any public figure who has this record that supporting abortion on demand, really right up until birth?
Of course. First, I would admonish them, as I've done in the past, as Bishop of La Crosse and also Archbishop of St. Louis. But then if they persist in this, then they cannot present themselves for Holy Communion, because they are in a grave moral evil, involved in a grave moral evil, which is a source of scandal to everyone. It endangers their own soul and also leads others into error, and so they should not present themselves for Holy Communion. And if they do, they should be told that they're not to receive.
Your Eminence, we spoke about this a little earlier, but in that new documentary that premiered in Rome last week, Francesco, Pope Francis appears to endorse civil unions for same-sex couples. Your thoughts on this and what it represents? Is this a shift in church teaching or in the embrace of official gay unions? That's how it's being played in the media and even from some elements in the Catholic Church.
Well, I addressed with a statement which can be found on my website, cardinalburke.com. That perception, as it's worldwide, I've seen it in the press from various parts of the world, that the Church has changed its teaching, and the Church cannot be in favor of so-called civil unions of people of the same sex. First of all, the Church has always taught that the acts of genital acts between people of the same sex are intrinsically evil, and secondly, that marriage is only between one man and one woman. It's a faithful and lifelong and fruitful union, and clearly a liaison between two people of the same sex is in no way a union of that kind, because it, number one, it can't produce offspring. and then the argument is used that the people who lived this way need legal protection. Well, the government protects the family because the family is important for the future, is producing the new citizens and so forth. The family is the first cell of the unit of the life of the society. But our liaison between two people of the same sex doesn't fulfill these needs of the society at all. And therefore, there's no need to protect that legally. If there are some private rights that the individuals involved have to protect, the laws are in place as they are for everyone else.
Yeah.
So
Your Eminence, you have said that the Pope's comments should be rightly interpreted as simple private opinions of the person who made them, end quote. How is that possible when the person in question is the Pope?
Well, we have to understand that what in the Middle Ages, they talked about the two bodies of the Pope. There's the man, Jorge Bergoglio, and then there's the Vicar of Christ on earth. And not every thought that comes to the man, not every word that he utters is a thought or a word of the Vicar of Christ on earth. And in the past, popes spoke very infrequently, and they never practically gave their own opinions about anything. So with Pope Francis, he's very free about that. But then we have to understand these are his opinions. But how can we say that the magisterium, the official teaching of the Church, is being presented in an interview on some film? This is not serious.
Your Eminence, before I let you go, should the Vatican issue a clarification, and what position have these comments put you and your fellow cardinals in? I notice a lot of bishops coming out around the world saying, wait a minute, the Church hasn't changed anything, and I disagree with this.
Right. Well, the position we're put in is that we have to teach the faith, and that's why I made the statement. It's very painful for me to have to make a statement like that, but we have to. The truth has to be spoken, and that's the bishop's duty, certainly a cardinal's duty. What I have the greatest compassion for priests. The priests, can't tell you how many priests have been in contact with me, telling me that they're faithful, are all upset and confused about this, and the priests are put in a position too, which is not right. So, and I don't know why the Vatican. There are people who are interpreting this, saying, well, they've misconstrued the Pope's words and so forth. Well, then why doesn't the Holy See make a statement and say, no, we teach what we've always taught, but there's not a word.
Your Eminence, Raymond Cardinal Burke, we will stay in touch with you. We thank you for the time, and you can follow Cardinal Burke on Twitter at Cardinal R. Burke, or visit his website, cardinalburke.com. Thank you, Your Eminence.
Thank you, Raymond. God bless you.
He is the retired Bishop of Hong Kong, and despite all his warnings, the Holy See has officially renewed its agreement with China, allowing the communist government a say in the appointment of Catholic bishops. In the past year, China has continued to crack down on religious groups and churches in the mainland and in Hong Kong. Why did the Vatican extend what remains a secret deal with China? And what are the ramifications for the faithful who must live under this communist regime? Here with an update is Joseph Cardinal Zen. Your Eminence, thank you for being here. The Vatican renewed that agreement with China on October 22nd. You've called this renewal sickening. Why?
No, I said that the speech by Cardinal Parolin is full of lies. That was sickening. But I am not very much interested in this renewal of the agreement because I don't even know what is in that agreement. So what can I say? So the most incomprehensible thing is that it should remain secret. But anyway, all the facts which follow the signing of the agreement all speak against the agreement because we see no improvement, but only the hardening of the position of the government, and the persecution is much more harsh than before. So I don't think we have to expect any improvement from this renewal of the agreement.
You mentioned Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State. He explained in Milan that the Vatican extended their agreement, giving Chinese authority a significant role in choosing the country's bishops because, and we quote, the pastoral goal of the agreement was to free up local churches to dedicate themselves to the mission of proclaiming the gospel and for the dialogue to bear more consistent fruit. It is necessary to continue it. Is this agreement, Cardinal Zen, helping the proclamation of the gospel or facilitating dialogue?
I am 100% sure that His Eminence doesn't believe what he was saying. He cannot believe what he's saying.
Why?
Because you can be optimistic, but you need a foundation for your optimism. Now, from all the things which happened after the signing of the agreement, we see nothing, no improvement at all. So I would like to tell him, just give us few facts, just a few facts, but nothing. So how can he say that it's helping? It's helping the wrong church. The church they are helping is the schismatic church. And so you just help that church to grow, and you make the right church, the underground church, the faithful church to die. That's the fact.
Yeah. To date, the details, as you mentioned, the details of this agreement regarding the appointment of bishops have been kept secret. And the situation in China for Catholics and the people of faith there has continued to decline. What are you hearing from people in China, and what was the reaction to the re-signing of this deal?
You see, the agreement is about the appointment of bishops. And they say the things went very smooth, but nothing happened in the force of that agreement, because no appointment had made during these 2 years. So it's something ridiculous. They made such a solemn agreement and they did not use it. No appointment at all during 2 years. We have 2 episcopal ordinations, okay, but the appointment was made many years ago. Without a written agreement, there was a not written compromise, mutual guessing, persons which may be acceptable, may not the best for either, but acceptable to both. But with this secrecy, the government used the agreement to demand everything from the people. And so they told the people in the underground, come on, and now you join our church. But the people say, no, it's not allowed. And they say, no, the Pope already agreed. And the people don't know whether the Pope really agreed. At a certain moment, even Cardinal Parolin and Cardinal Filoni said there was no agreement on that. Then last year, the Holy See, no signature, but we know it's creature of Cardinal Parolin, agreement, instruction from the Holy See, which must be much worse than the agreement, because in that so-called pastoral orientation for the civil registration of the clergy, the Holy See was encouraging the people to join the independent church, the Patriarchal Association. That's sinful because you join a schismatic church.
You traveled to Rome last month, hoping to meet with the Pope about appointing a new bishop in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's been without a bishop for over a year. He declined to meet with you, but you did deliver a letter to him. What was your message to Pope Francis and Cardinal Tagle, who's in charge of the Congregation for Evangelization, which is supposed to provide recommendations for a bishop in Hong Kong?
Yeah, actually, that agreement must regard only the church in China, on mainland. But you see, now with this state security law, we, Hong Kong, we have become just any city in China. And so, even before this state security law, they are talking about the need of a blessing from Beijing for our bishop. So that means we are no more an autonomous region.
Right.
And so we are worried. A person with a blessing from Beijing means they are sure that that person is ready to be on his knees, to obey completely to the regime. That's surely not reassuring.
Right.
And the rumor is that the Holy See may have put aside also this choice because they know that either Bishop Ha or Father Choi would not be accepted by the whole diocese. So maybe better to choose a third one, more acceptable to the totality of the diocese. But still, we are waiting for more than 1 year after that decision.
Right.
So I have some indication that the Holy See may be going back to the choice of Father Choi with the blessing of Beijing. So I was much worried. So I went to Rome. I just like to explain to the Holy Father why this choice is not good.
Given the situation in China, Your Eminence, is the underground church operating at all? What are these Catholics able to do?
The Cardinal Parolin say now all the bishops in China are legitimate. Okay, but you just put the label legitimate on those people. But those people have not changed. They're just like before. They're defiant. They are completely on the side of the government. They absolutely unworthy to be bishops. And so is that to be congratulated? And so now they invite all the underground also to join the church. Sometimes they say that, okay, we understand that the church is still going to remain a bird cage. Now you invite everybody to enter that cage. So what are they doing? They are destroying the true church and supporting the wrong church, the schismatic church.
In justifying the China agreement, Cardinal Parolin cited something Cardinal Baptista Ray, the Dean of the College of Cardinals, had said in March, mainly this: Pope Benedict XVI approved the draft agreement on the appointment of bishops in China, which it was only possible to sign in 2018. Is there any truth to this claim that Pope Benedict approved this China agreement?
First of all, just forget Cardinal Ray. Poor fellow, he was under pressure of Cardinal Parolin because he knows nothing about the church in China. He never had any part in these discussions about church in China. So the poor fellow, they chose him to be the dean of the cardinals, and so he must do something to please Cardinal Parolin. Now, the big lie is to say that Pope Benedict agreed on this agreement which they have signed now. This is an insult. So the meek and mild Pope Benedict will not come out to deny what Cardinal Parolin is saying. So he's inserting a holy person. That is very disgusting. Now, I have enough evidence to say that in the year 2010, Parolin and Cardinal Diaz they drafted together with the counterpart an agreement which Pope Benedict must have refused to sign. That's, I can say in my conscience with my knowledge of all what happened those days. And now, Cardinal Ray dares even to challenge me with archive evidences. I made appeal to these archive evidences. And now I'm even afraid that they may even destroy the evidences. But I think one day the truth may come out. So it's a big lie and big insult to the holy person of our Pope Benedict.
Final question. I only have 30 seconds, Cardinal Zen. What is the solution here, in your opinion? What should the Church be doing? Is there a way out of this conundrum, where we are now with this agreement signed and renewed?
It's a nonsense, this signing and this renewing, because it has no effect at all, except it becomes an instrument in the hands of the government to do everything. You can see the things worsen day by day in China, and not only for the underground, which now is condemned to go into the catacombs, but even for the official church. Now those under 18 years of age, they can even not get into the church.
Right.
They cannot take part in any religious activity like the summer camps. So how can you say there's a progress? So simply, I cannot understand. Cardinal Parolin said, "Oh, we are not aiming at the diplomatic relation." That's also a lie. I think this is the only reason you can explain all what he is doing.
It is I have to tell you, as you've pointed out for many years, the fruit of this, and this has been building for a long time, but the fruit of this agreement, young people forbidden in churches, the gospel themselves changed to include Xi and Mao. I mean, this is mind-blowing. And the fact that the Catholic Church would bless this in any way, you have to be heartbroken. I know I am.
Yeah, I was telling the people, we can be without the church, we can be without the sacraments, but we must hold the faith. We can never sacrifice our faith. We can even sacrifice the sacraments. For example, when you are arrested, you go to prison for 20, 30 years, no sacrament, but God is in your heart. So just wait for better times, maybe soon, or maybe the primitive church had to wait 300 years, okay? So God has his time. We should be humble and just accept what happens, but don't tell lies. Don't tell and don't believe lies.
I agree with you. No
Don't
lies.
believe lies.
No lies. We have to expose the lies. And we are praying for you. Our audience is praying for you and the people of China. And may your faith remain strong, Your Eminence. For love of my people, I will not keep silent by Joseph Cardinal Zen. It's available at bookstores everywhere, online at EWTN's religious catalog as well. Thank you, Your Eminence.
Thank you for your prayers.
Thank you. And I'm pleased to report that my first picture book, The Spider Who Saved Christmas, is a bestseller, one of the top Christmas books on Amazon. Thank you all for getting it. Now, many of you have asked about signed copies of the book to give them as gifts. Well, here's how you can get them. On Wednesday, November 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm hosting a virtual book signing. You can get all the information at discoverlegends.com. You'll get a special pass to the book signing. I'll read a bit of the book, take your questions, and you will be sent a signed edition. That's November 18th, 7 p.m. Eastern. EWTN Religious Catalog is handling those sales, and you can still find The Spider Who Saved Christmas at Amazon, EWTN, your local bookseller, wherever books are sold. The book revives an all but forgotten legend surrounding the Christmas story, and it explains why we decorate our trees with Christmas tinsel. It's a great tale. Visit discoverlegends.com for more info on those book signings. And the world over is now a podcast. Download us at iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. That's all the time we have for now. Be sure to catch us next week. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. Go vote. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thank you for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo. Bye now.